10, Chapter 10 A Meeting. The wound that was on his forehead was completely gone without a trace, as if nothing really happened to him. He didn't feel dazed anymore, and no more blood was gushing through his head. It left William confused. Was he hallucinating? Something must have happened, because this is not normal, even though it's good that his head wasn't injured anymore. One thing is for sure, that he didn't bang his head hard enough, making him knocked out, and he was in a dream all along. But then, William had a thought. Something that he thought to be impossible for it to happen. He grabbed his toothbrush from the sink and then scraped the ends of the toothbrush on the wall to sharpen it, creating a shiv from the toothbrush. It took him a while to sharpen the edges of the shiv, and then he took a deep breath. There was a slight doubt inside of him, but he needed to know if his assumptions and theory were correct regarding what happened to his wound on the forehead before. He braced himself up and cut his hand with it. He groaned in pain, knowing very well that blood was flowing through his hand because he had just cut it with a shiv that he had made. It might have felt that he had just done something stupid to his own hand, but a few seconds later, something happened to his hand that was visible to the naked eye. The wound on William's hand had just repaired by itself. The skin cells were growing at a fast rate. Stopped the blood that was flowing through his hand, and then the wound was gone in just about a minute. Knowing that his assumptions were correct, William laughed. It appears that he had obtained SCP-415's anomalous trait, which is regeneration. That explains why the wound on his forehead and hand was completely gone, because it was healed at a fast rate. William couldn't hold his excitement, knowing that he had this kind of ability right now, an ability to regenerate, which would be useful and increase his rate of survival for the next coming days. He couldn't be cocky just because he had this ability. But surely, this will be beneficial for him, including the knowledge that he had in his head regarding how things in the SCP universe work. He lay on the bed and felt a little relief. That his chance of survival as a D-class has increased for the next few days. He was curious if he could also obtain more abilities too from another SCP. 10:15 p.m., Site-199 Conference Room. A few people were sitting on their chairs, circling around a meeting table in the meeting room. They were waiting for someone, described by the projector in that room was still blank. A researcher came into the conference room with his laptop. Their eyes focused on that researcher that just put down his laptop on the desk. He seemingly tried to connect his laptop to the projector and get ready for a presentation. One of the researchers that were present said, "There should be a better reason for this, calling us late at night for a meeting." "Indeed I do, Dr. Smith. I have something that's pretty much going to be our tonight's discussion regarding what happened on SCP-173's containment cell," answered Dr. Wells as his eyes focused on the laptop preparing the presentation. "Is it about that failed procedure that the D-class personnel did not carry out correctly, where they were told to clean up the place?" Dr. Wells finishes typing, and he looks at Dr. Smith. "That was just a part of it. Something that's more questionable happened back then." He then grabs a projector remote and clicks it in his hand. "This afternoon, SCP-173's temporary containment cell needed to be cleaned. We appointed 3 D-class personnel to take care of the job according to the procedures and just to be safe." On the projector, they were shown 3 D-class personnel that were tasked to do the job. That 3 personnel were D-1092, D-1020, and D-1140. Now, failed procedures often happen because of the carelessness that was made by one of them, which caused 2 of them, D-1020 and D-1140, killed by SCP-173. We received the distress call made by D-1140 and were alerted that something had gone wrong, but when we arrived, there was only D-1092 left in the room." "What about D-1092, asked Dr. Smith. "D-1092 was the only survivor of that incident, which doesn't seem to raise many questions because we may have arrived before it's too late. But take a look at this." Dr. Wells pressed the remote and moved away. The projector shows a video recording from the SCP-173's containment cell, which only shows the part where only D1092 and SCP-173 are left in the room. They watched it carefully for any weird behavior, but there was a moment when SCP-173 was only a meter away from D1092, which put him in a bad situation. But in the next second, SCP-173 walked away from D1092, and the people who were present in the conference room were shocked. There was some absurdity regarding what happened at that moment. SCP-173 didn't attack him like it would attack the others. This was no mere coincidence, and it happens multiple times. Dr. Wells shows multiple pictures of SCP-173 and D1092's behavior. There is still no explanation as to why this event happened or what could make SCP-173's behavior change drastically. Which is why I'm holding a meeting right now to talk about it. He then shows a record of D1092. I've done a background research myself. There was never any record of D1092's information. According to a missing people database, no birth certificate, no fingerprints matched, and no matching characteristics or appearance that met his identity. Of course, all Chaos Insurgency members could easily erase any information about themselves for confidentiality, but there was never any information about him except the name William that he gave to us. If that is his real name. The researchers who were present were as confused as Dr. Wells, who saw the recording in the first place. Something that's considered unnatural according to its normal behavior just happened, and it involves D1092 to be part of it. Dr. Wells then continued, on top of that, we tried to scan with our OLF trace detector and found that the OLF residue fluctuates that are far from the value of 0, which suggests that this D1092 is not from our reality. There was an old man in a black suit on the farmost side of the table. He straightened his posture and said, "It is our mission to always contain something that couldn't be understood nor explained with our current logic. With that, we should do what we have always done." Creator's thoughts. Inakia. Don't forget to vote it with Power Stones and leave a comment if you like it. You can read up to 18 chapters before its release on patreon.com/Inakia and join my Discord https://discord.gg/7wezqmdti. Comment 3 comment. Vote 3 left. 3. Chapter 11, Chapter 11 Designation Alpha 1. It was morning, although William couldn't tell from the scenery outside. But he could guess that this was already in the morning. There was another knock on his door, and the door chute was opened. It was time for breakfast, and William grabbed the food tray and ate his breakfast. He casually ate through his food like a good morning breakfast to energize him up before going to another job for the day. But then there was another knock on his door, and one of the guards came up to him. "What is it? Another job for the day later?" "What should I do later?" asked William as he ate his breakfast. "There won't be any. In fact, you're going to be moved to somewhere else other than here," answered the guard. Hearing that statement, William stopped eating and then looked at the guard through the door. "Wait, what do you mean by that?" The guard continued, "As exactly what I just said. The department said that you were being placed in a new place for you to live in. You'll see what I mean in a moment." "A new place?" William was confused about this because he didn't know what he did to the point he'd get this kind of treatment. He wasn't sure what does this mean, so he could only accept and follow how it went later on. "Anyway, finish up your meal. After that, I'll take you to the place." The guard then left. William continued his breakfast, taking his time because they were not in a hurry. After some time, he finished his food, put the tray aside, and went to the sink to wash his face and brush his teeth. He picked up the toothbrush whose ends had been shaped into a shiv, remembering the night before that, and he tried to use it to cut his hand to prove his point. He brushed his teeth, washed his face, and prepared himself to start the day. William opened his door cell, only to find out that 2 guards were waiting for him on the outside. They then pull out a handcuff and start to place it onto William's hand like the usual. After that, the guard told him to follow their lead, which should escort William to a new place that the guard had told him before. As he walked through the corridor of Site 199, there was a slightly uneasy feeling that made him weirded out by it. Some of the personnel looked at him with a weird look, unlike before when they saw him with a sinister look. It may be because of his current status right now as a D-class personnel, but that wasn't it. Something was indeed weird today. First, he got a call that he would be moved to a new place. Secondly, people were looking at him with a different feeling than before. But he guessed that it was just a normal thing that happened in the Foundation and that he just needed to get used to it, or it would only bother him every day. After all, he's at one of the SCP Foundation sites, where all the weird things happen most of the time. This time, he was brought to a floor that was heading down. He wasn't sure where he was going to be placed, but as he arrived on the floor, William saw one of the signs that were placed on that floor, which reads, "Containment Area." He doesn't like the sound of that. As far as he knows, the containment area is where most of the SCPs were being contained. If he doesn't have any job to do for today, then where are they going to? In fact, what does all this mean? There are labels on the door with symbols and notices regarding what's inside. Who knows what SCP could be in each of these rooms? It was pretty much like the D-class dormitory, but rather than for D-class personnel to rest, it was for the SCP to be contained. They then arrived at a room that was guarded by 2 guards in front of it. The cuffs on William's hand were removed, and then he was instructed to go inside the room. Seemingly confused about the situation, he asked, "What do I have to do? What does this mean, and what's going on?" One of the guards looked at him and answered, "You'll understand later when you're already inside." The guards then closed the door of his new cell and walked away from the scene, leaving only William to be inside his new cell. The cell itself wasn't really that bad. It was larger than his cell before but still had basic needs such as a bed, toilet, sink, etc. Besides that, there was a CCTV and speaker on the wall. It looks more like a normal dorm room, unlike a jail cell like before. To say that it was better or not, it's certainly an upgrade from before. But regarding what happened and what does it mean, there isn't much to tell William about his current status right now. "Welcome to your new place, D1092," a voice can be heard coming out through the speaker. It was a familiar voice for William. He then replied, "You're that doctor from before, the one who interviewed me when I first arrived at this place. It's great for you to remember my name, but that isn't important anymore. Of course, you might be asking, why are you here? What does this mean? And many more questions to come into your mind. But don't worry, I will keep it as simple as I can for you to understand your situation." William then approached the speakers where Dr. Eric was talking. "All right then, I'm listening. To put it simply, what happened to you yesterday caught the attention of several people in the Foundation. Of course, you know what I'm talking about. But, in case you forgot, when you were in that containment room, you were not killed by SCP-173. It may seem like a normal thing or just a coincidence, but you and I know that wasn't the case, right?" In William's thought, they found out that there were irregularities within his encounter with SCP-173. He wasn't really sure what could possibly be the reason for it, but it was indeed a strange thing that happened. With that reason and some other things that we put to consideration about your presence, it was a unanimous vote that we decided to move you out, categorize you to another identification, and to study about you. There was a slight pause from Dr. Eric before continuing on with his message. SCP-A1 will be your new designated calling name. Any questions, Alpha 1? Creator's thoughts? Inakia. Don't forget to vote it with Power Stones and leave a comment if you like it. You can read up to 18 chapters before its release on patreon.com/inakia and join my Discord https://discord.gg/7wzqmdti. Comment 9 comment. Vote 3 left. 9. Chapter 12, Chapter 12 I want to show you something. Designation Alpha 1? It was an odd identification number for an SCP. They would usually fill it with numbers to fill their catalogs. The meeting concluded that we have found irregularities within yourself. The reason for this was, of course, we have at least proved one thing to our finding that you're not from this world. On top of that, your encounter with SCP-173 couldn't be explained, which raises the question on our side. What happened back then was indeed weird and couldn't be explained by anything. William thought it was just due to pure luck, but Dr. Eric and the other researchers were inclined to disagree with that kind of answer. It may be caused by the anomalous properties that William had before he had gone to this world. Do you have anything to say or to give us regarding your encounter with SCP-173? William didn't have any answers regarding that moment, and he was as puzzled as the other researchers trying to figure out what could make SCP-173 change its behavior. Which to his knowledge about the SCP Foundation, there isn't any. I don't know. I didn't do anything to it, and I just thought SCP-173 had a change of heart, answered William. I see. Right after Dr. Eric finished, William asked, I have a question. Why Alpha 1? Shouldn't SCP items be numbered for the Foundation to list them? The Foundation doesn't know how to categorize you due to the lack of information. We are currently studying you regarding what anomalies were present, and until then, we should designate you as SCP-A1 for a temporary placeholder. It was pretty understandable that there are many anomalies in the world, so many that the Foundation had to categorize them depending on the anomaly. There are log of anomalous items, where objects, creatures, or items that could be considered an anomaly but didn't need to be contained due to the lack of urgency. Like a rock that just shines a bright light or a ping pong ball that changes its color every time it is played. I see, but what do I do now since I'm no longer a D-class personnel? Asked William. We'll be studying you from now on. Whether that be watching your day-by-day activities or experimenting with something to find out more about your anomalous properties. He can let out a sigh of relief, knowing that he will no longer have to work as a D-class to be cannon fodder for an SCP and not a Chaos Insurgency member. But there is still an uneasy feeling that he'll be watched by them every single time and be tested on with something. William knew that the Foundation would do anything in their way to get data or information regarding what kind of anomaly they were facing, whether by following their orders or by using force when it came to experimenting. There are some SCPs that were handled by those methods. SCP-076-2 was famous for its rebellious behavior and wouldn't listen to Foundation's orders to the point they had to use force for it. On the other hand, there is SCP-105, which was deemed cooperative when it came to handling her. With this information, William should obey and be cooperative with them. It could not also give him a leeway about how the Foundation would treat him as an SCP, but it could also gain Foundation's trust to benefit him in the long run. He raised his hand. I wanted to show something to you. Dr. Eric was curious about what he wanted to say. He asked, what is it? But, in order for me to do that, can I ask for a knife or anything that is sharp for me to demonstrate? You cannot. Instead, I can give you this. There was a small and hidden compartment coming out from the walls of his cell. William walked towards the compartment and looked at it. He found a small surgical scissor inside it for him to use. You can use that. Please put it back inside the compartment after you're done using it. William grabbed the surgical scissor that was inside the compartment. He walked towards the camera where Dr. Eric could see it clearly, raised his sleeve, and held the scissor downwards. He stabbed his arm and created a line of cutting with the ends of the scissor throughout his hand. He was groaning in pain as he demonstrated it, but William kept doing it until it reached his elbow. He then dropped the scissor to the floor and held his hand high while looking at the camera. On the other side of the room, Dr. Eric focused his eyes on his monitor to analyze what was going on with William's hand. To his surprise, William's wound gradually healed from what he saw through the monitor. The skin on his hand was repairing by itself by closing off the wound, stopping the blood from flowing on William's hand. William then cleaned his bloody hand with his orange jumpsuit and showed it to Dr. Eric. It was clear from the camera that his hands were completely healed and unharmed, there was no more blood flowing, and the wound that was created by the scissor was completely gone. Fascinating, said Dr. Eric with a little smile on his face. This is what I have on my body right now. It seems that I can heal myself when my body is harmed physically. Though, I had no control over what was going on. But it was the only abnormal thing that I have, unlike the others. William picks up the surgical scissor on the floor that he dropped, and then puts it back into the compartment on the wall. Dr. Eric was noting down everything that had just been said by William on his personal note for him later. That was quite informative. There are still some questions and further research regarding what causes it or how it actually works. Could it be that the cell's regeneration inside your body was faster than normal, or there is anything that reconstructs your DNA? He stopped for a moment in his words, cleared his throat, and then continued, sorry about that. It is indeed a quite anomalous property you got. We may need further experiments regarding your body. But fret not. I will try to collect as much data as possible without you having to endure a lot of pain by going through it. It seems that William had gained a little bit of the Foundation's trust by showing his anomalous ability as a sign of cooperation between the two of them. He would only need to follow their orders, and he'll be left alone most of the time. Because living as an SCP that was contained in the cell room was way much better than becoming a D-class personnel. I think that's enough for today's session. That is all you need to know for your new status, and you will be living in this cell from now on. Hearing this will be the end of their meeting for today, William asked, so, what am I supposed to do while I'm here? Sit back and suit yourself up. Because I'll be meeting you again shortly, said Dr. Eric. Creator's thoughts. Inakia. Don't forget to vote it with Power Stones and leave a comment if you like it. You can read up to 18 chapters before its release on patreon.com/Inakia and join my Discord https://discord.gg/7wezqmdti. Comment 25 comment. Vote 3 left. 25. Chapter 13, Chapter 13 A Horde of Zombies. With William undergoing a change from a D-class personnel and an SCP, his daily activities were nothing but like a normal life. He doesn't need to worry about whether he will die the next day after meeting a certain SCP nor be scared of his life. Because for the Foundation, every SCPs in their hands are a valuable asset that should not be destroyed, unlike the other organization. He lives day by day in his cell by doing mostly nothing. There were experiments that were done by Dr. Eric to study more about his anomalous ability in great detail. It went pretty well because they carefully treated William during the experiment by using morphine to reduce the pain as they tried to see how his regeneration works. William was also cooperative and obedient throughout the experiment, making Dr. Eric and his research team to be lenient in studying and collecting his anomaly. With William's good behavior, Dr. Eric gave him the freedom to ask for one book every week to keep him accompanied throughout the day. Of course, the book needs to be examined and reviewed first before giving it to him. It could be said that lately, his life has been pretty boring, with nowhere for him to go or do anything in his cell. He was limited to what he could do, knowing that he's an SCP and he can't just wander around unsupervised. He didn't know what to do except to read books, eat, sleep and repeat. It was a pretty normal night like others. William was just spending his time reading a book that he requested before he went to sleep. He felt like there was something happening outside his cell, but he wasn't really sure about it. At first, William thought it was just someone or something walking down through the hallway in front of his cell. Which is not weird because the guards usually patrol some of the areas in the site just to make sure everything is under control. He just brushed it off and continued to read the book. But then he heard it again. This time it was a footstep. The way it sounds doesn't seem quite right, and it felt like someone was dragging its own leg. The rhythm of the footstep was not quite synced, unlike a normal footstep that has a pace and sound that differs for each person. The footsteps became more and more apparent, with more steps could be heard. Like a group of people was walking through the hallway. But it still has that dragged footstep feeling for each step that was made. He stopped reading and gazed his attention towards the door of his cell. He was really curious about what could be happening outside his cell, but he couldn't peek out to see what was happening and relied on his own ear to guess the situation. After a minute later, the footsteps were gone. Thought it was just nothing and could be that some guards were carrying something from the other cell. William then continued to open his book and start reading it again. A gunshot was heard. Not only one, but there were several gunshots echoing through the hallway. William was quickly alerted about that sound from his cell, that something bad must have happened because there's no reason for the Foundation to shoot something if it's nothing out of the ordinary. More gunshots were coming, and the emergency siren was triggered, indicating that they were facing trouble within the area. William rushed his way to the door of his cell and placed his ears next to it, trying to get clear information regarding what was happening outside his cell. He heard gunshots and a snarling sound coming from the hallway. Chaos was happening outside of his cell. Foundation guards were shooting at something that made William a bit puzzled about who could have done all of that. He walked up towards the CCTV camera in his call and waved his hand. "Hello? What is going on, and why is there a ruckus coming out from my cell?" But there was no answer. William then tried it once again. "Hello? Can anyone hear me? Or at least answer me regarding what's happening outside so that I don't have to worry about it? Sorry that we have to put you on hold right now, because there was a situation that needed to be handled." There was an answer, and it was from Dr. Eric. "All I can say to you now is everything will be fine, and you don't have to worry about it." William was a bit relieved that Dr. Eric informed him that he was not in danger or anything. But he was really curious about what could possibly be the reason for the whole commotion outside of his cell to the point it made the Foundation have to undergo emergency procedures. He then asked, "What was exactly happening there? I need some insight about the situation." There was a slight pause, then Dr. Eric chose to explain the situation to him. There was a breach. It was not directly made by the SCP itself. Moreover, that his followers or so minions were causing the problem. We have to keep minimum contact with those creatures to minimize our casualties and to prevent more personnel from being affected by the anomaly. Hence why you and researchers like me are stuck in here with nowhere to go nor anyone to contact besides you until the situation has been sorted." William frowned, and the gunshots outside were Foundation guards fending off those quote-unquote minions of an SCP. Yes. A horde of zombies created by SCP-049 are the ones that we're currently shooting at, and there are a lot of them coming, with the fact that SCP-049 could reanimate the dead guard bodies to be one of them. That's why both of us need to stay in our room and wait for the guards to take care of them. This was quite a shock for William, because he didn't know that SCP-049 was contained in this site. The fact that he was here and making his horde of zombies to create some disturbance in here was quite extraordinary. A thought came through his mind. What would happen if he met SCP-049 in person? Would that give him the ability for William to use just like he met SCP-415 before, which caused him to have a regenerative ability? If so, what kind of anomaly that would he obtain later? There were many questions about what would happen in that scenario. But one thing for sure, William had to try it. Dr. Eric, I have a request. He raised his hand towards the camera. Could you open my door cell and let me help the guards take care of the situation? Dr. Eric immediately answered, no, I cannot. There's a great risk involved in the situation, and putting you in there is the last thing I would do since there's no need for you to be there. You might be right about that because everyone that works for the Foundation knows very well the risk of living under that situation every day. But, I might be able to help them. I know how to make SCP-049 to degross and end the situation at once without causing more casualties. There was a slight doubt from Dr. Eric about what William had just said, and he asked, how are you going to accomplish that? There's a way, but I need you to trust me. All I need is your permission to open the door, and I'll try to save anyone out there before it gets worse. Creator's thoughts. Inakia. Don't forget to vote it with Power Stones and leave a comment if you like it. You can read up to 18 chapters before its release on patreon.com/Inakia and join my Discord https://discord.gg/7wezqmdti. Comment 5 comment. Vote 3 left. 5. Chapter 14, Chapter 14 The Plague Doctor. SCP-049, the Plague Doctor, is classified as Euclid. He is to be contained in a standard humanoid cell. He must be administered sedation before being transferred to another place and wear a Class 3 humanoid restriction harness while being monitored by 2 guards or more. SCP-049 is cooperative most of the time with Foundation personnel, but any sudden violence or change of behavior shown must be handled with force, and no other person is allowed to be near nor make contact with SCP-049 while in this state. SCP-049 is a humanoid of 1.9 m in height and has the appearance of a medieval plague doctor. He wears a thick black robe, and a ceramic mask, with its clothing, analyzed to have grown from his own body over time. Despite this, SCP-049 is shown to have a skeletal structure beneath his clothing. While most of the time, his behavior was friendly and cooperative, he can be easily irritated if he feels something around him that he likes to call pestilence. Although there was no clear explanation of what could be considered as one, but it seems to be the very thing that SCP-049 has an issue with. SCP-049 automatically becomes hostile if he sees someone that was being affected by pestilence and will generally attempt to kill that person. SCP-049 was able to disable all functions of any organs and cells on any creature through direct skin contact. The reason for how that happened was unknown. He will perform surgery on the said person he killed with his own equipment that he always carries at all times. While these surgeries were not always successful, with the result will always turn his patients into SCP-049-2. SCP-049-2 is designated for the corpses that have gone through SCP-049 surgery. Despite their behavior of not recalling any past memories, SCP-049-2 still retain their basic motoric skills. While most of them were generally dormant, they could be aggressive and hostile if provoked or being controlled by SCP-049. Despite the rough and unnatural appearance caused by SCP-049 surgery, he often deemed his patients had been cured from the pestilence. Dr. Eric was stunned by the situation. He doesn't know what to do, and certainly, this is basically a high-risk, high-reward decision. There is a possibility that he does really know how to take care of SCP-049 in this situation. Still, he doesn't want to lose a valuable asset like William with his anomalous properties. On the other hand, he didn't have a way to contact the other researchers about the information that William had because the whole place was in an emergency procedure. This leaves the only option to William himself to carry out the job, and it would be a great move by both of them if they really succeeded. No more casualties, and the Foundation will finally know how to control SCP-049 in the future with the information he had. Dr. Eric thought about the pros and cons of the choices he had. There wasn't much he could do, and there was only one obvious answer. You must know that the thing we are both trying to do has a great risk on it, and I'll be the one who's taking the responsibility if anything goes out of plan, said Dr. Eric. William could tell that Dr. Eric was hesitant about doing such a thing. I know, Doc. I just wanted to put myself where I could be useful rather than being locked up here, knowing that I know how to help them. Dr. Eric made up his mind and took the bet. He then pressed the button for the door on William's cell to be unlocked. The safety mechanism was removed, allowing William to open the door himself. You need to be careful about what you're doing because you're going to deal with a lot of them on your way. Tell them that I sent you if you encounter a guard on your way out, and I'll take responsibility for it. Hearing that Dr. Eric had made his choice and trusted him, William put 2 fingers on the forehead and saluted him through the camera. Understood, document. William opened the door and walked out of his cell. Dr. Eric knows that he won't have any way to monitor William's actions from now on and could only hope that everything is going very well. He made his way through the containment area hallway. He didn't know what SCPs could be contained other than him here, but he wasn't going to try to find out about it since it's not his priority. Though he was tempted to try to obtain as many SCP abilities as he could, but doing so would only make the situation worse. Besides that, accomplishing his task right now would benefit him. First, he may acquire the anomalous ability that SCP-049 had. He didn't know what he would get, but it could be beneficial for him in the long run. Second, by helping the Foundation in this matter, he could gain the Foundation's trust and may give William a reward for his service. As he reached up to the junction at the end of the containment area hallway, he found several bodies of SCP-049-2 that had been shot by the guards until they were dead with bullets. There were many of them, and the Foundation guards were having a hard time dealing with it, as shown by the bullet marks on the walls. Most of the SCP-049-2 were D-Class personnel. He didn't know how SCP-049 could have turned so many of the D-Class to turn them into his own minions. Either way, this is a really troubling situation for the Foundation. He didn't have much time to waste, so he just went straight to the main hallway on this site. As the bodies of SCP-049-2 kept piling in the hallway, he found several bodies that belonged to the Foundation guard. By the looks of it, the guards were eaten by SCP-049-2 until only some of the flesh remained on the floor. William was a bit frightened by the horrors that the guard had gone through when facing a horde of SCP-049-2. He then looked next to the body, and there was a gun lying around, the gun that was used by that guard before he died fighting it. William took the submachine gun, which he didn't have any experience at all when it came to firearms. But he needed at least a weapon for him to survive when making contact with any of the zombies. He kept continuing on his steps to the main hallway, checking every corner and side carefully, making sure that the coast is clear for him to continue and anticipating for a surprise attack made by the zombie. He heard that there were gunshots from afar. He knew that he must be near some of the guards that were fighting the zombies. With that in mind, he started to go towards where the gunshot was located. Just as he expected, there were some personnel shooting and fending off those zombies to clear out the area. They were in a bit of trouble, some of them were shooting with their pistols, and some of them were hitting the zombies with their batons. Captain Grace, Go. Don't worry about us. We'll take care of them. Just go to the armory and apprehend SCP-049 quickly before it gets worse, said one of the guards who were hitting a zombie with his baton. Without any hesitation, William aimed down his gun at the zombies and pulled the trigger one by one, making his shots count. Seeing that the zombies were taken down by another person, Grace gazes her attention toward William. "What are you doing here, Alpha 1? Asked Grace in surprise because of his presence. William didn't pay his attention to her and kept shooting the zombies around the area. "Isn't that obvious? I'm lending you guys a hand." "Not that. But why are you out of your own cell?" Seeing that most of the zombies were taken down, William holstered his gun. "Dr. Eric sent me on a task to help with the situation. Hence why I was allowed to leave my cell so that I could lend you guys a hand." "Dr. Eric sent you? But why?" asked Grace. "Because I know how to make SCP-049 stop his aggressiveness that causes this place into chaos and seize him without the use of force." Creator's thoughts. Inakia. Don't forget to vote it with Power Stones and leave a comment if you like it. You can read up to 18 chapters before its release on patreon.com/Inakia and join my Discord https://discord.gg/7wezqmdti. Comment 12 comment. Vote 3 left. 12. Chapter 15, Chapter 15 Make every shot count. Grace pondered, hearing such a thing could be done, we can actually do that. Yes. Which I assume you don't, by the looks of it. How does the current procedure made by the Foundation when it comes to handling SCP-049? William was a bit curious regarding that information. Grace was a bit reluctant to say it because certain information could not be shared with other personnel that has a low clearance level, but this was not the time for such matters. The Foundation heavily relies on using sedation to control SCP-049. However, it is only used when we're about to move him out or for any other activities. We're allowed to use force when he's in a hostile state, and we use rubber bullets to neutralize or at least paralyze SCP-049's movement while not creating a substantial harm to him. After we manage to paralyze him, we could sedate him to relax his nerves and put him back in his containment cell. Seeing that was the case, William seemed to have realized something about the current SCP Foundation. Some information that they have seems outdated, and the timeline of events in this world doesn't seem to add up with the information that he read in his world regarding the SCP Foundation. With that in mind, he has a little bit of an advantage on how to take care of things in this world, especially in times like this on how to handle SCP-049. William starts to reload his gun as he asks the question, "So how did that go?" Grace was a bit ashamed that everything didn't go as planned. She said, "The situation was worse than we could have expected. We thought only a few of SCP-049-2 were present at the time of containment breach, but we didn't expect that it would evolve to something dangerous." William finished his reload and asked, "What do you mean by that?" "It was a mistake on our part." She said, "The Foundation gave SCP-049 one dead body from a D-class personnel after they died from doing their job. Of course, this was to give the SCP-049 a subject to be experimented upon. But we didn't think that he had put something on the subject." Grace gazes her attention toward one of the SCP-049-2 bodies that were lying on the ground, one of the subjects or D-class that underwent SCP-049 surgery had a delayed effect. We thought it was just a failed surgery made by him that had no result, but we were wrong. When the subject was brought into the mortuary for them to be cremated, it started to live by itself. On top of that, that subject could infect any other dead bodies that were lying around in the mortuary to be turned into SCP-049-2. Hence why the number of SCP-049-2 appearances kept piling up, as they could infect any personnel with ease. Hearing about this information, William was a bit shocked at how different the anomalous effects of SCP-049 were towards any other personnel. Certainly, handling SCP-049 itself was already a hard thing to do, let alone a horde of zombies that could infect anyone else. She continued, "That's why until now, this site was in an emergency lockdown to minimize SCP-049-2 appearances as we tried to handle the main culprit of this whole situation." Now that William knew about the whole situation of the problem, he holstered his gun. "Thank you for the information. Now that I have fully understood the status quo, I need your help on handling SCP-049. We don't need to use any force when it comes to handling him." Grace was puzzled about what he meant about that and asked, "How are you supposed to do that? Especially when SCP-049 is hostile, and there's a lot of SCP-049-2 wandering around this place." William showed a small grin on his face and immediately answered, "A scent of lavender." Witnessing his answer, Grace and the other guards were confused about how it would work against SCP-049. The scent of lavender could work against SCP-049. It would loosen his nerve and make his hostility to be diminished. That's how we are going to fight SCP-049. Looking at their reaction, they seem not to believe William's words when it comes to how he will handle SCP-049. In fact, it could be considered as nonsensical that the scent of lavender could solve the problem. "I'm sorry, not to mean that your whole solution is weird. But how do you know that it's going to work?" Grace asked. "Because I know about it. If I weren't, then why would I risk my own life to be in this situation, knowing that I'll be fine most of the time in my cell," said William. He then continued, "Look, all we needed to do was to find anything that has a scent of lavender and spray it on SCP-049. After that, this situation can be handled easily." One of the guards raised his hand and asked, "How exactly are we going to find anything that has a scent of lavender, especially on this site?" Grace instinctively answered, "We have a biological area where we have our own hydroponic garden for our needs. One of which was a lavender flower that we often use to extract its oil. Then what are we waiting for? We should go there hastily and end this madness quickly," said William, knowing that they finally had a place to find the lavender for them to use. The bio area is on the other wing of this site. It would take us a long way to go there, not counting how many SCP-049-2 were in that area. It better be work when we have to put ourselves in a more dangerous situation by just doing that." Grace prepared her Glock, seemingly ready to rush into the place. "Trust me. It will." William also prepared his gun. "How many bullets do you guys have?" "Not much. This is my last magazine," said Grace. "We've depleted most of our bullets on our way out here. We can only use our baton to fight for now," said one of the guards. Seemingly that they were short on weapons for them to self-defense, William came up with a plan. "All right, here's what we are going to do. Captain Grace and I are going to shoot those zombies on the foot to immobilize them, and both of you are going to finish it by bashing them in the head. We have to make count of our bullets, and this is all we have left, got it?" All of them nodded and proceeded to go with that plan. William, Captain Grace, and the other two guards prepared their weapons before going to the right wing of Site-199. There was no going back, and this was their only chance to end this chaos immediately. "Captain Grace, please lead our way," said William. Grace nodded and then started to point the direction with two of her fingers. With that, they started to run towards the bio area as their main objective. Upon entering the first hallway on their way there, they encountered some of the zombies that were wandering around on the path. William and Grace instinctively shot their legs to immobilize them, and the two guards behind them knocked their heads out with their batons. It continues as they run through every single hallway, making an opening for them to go through without even stopping while taking out the zombies due to their combined effort of immobilizing and finishing the zombies. But then William stopped for a moment, seemingly a bit shocked by what he just saw with the zombies in front of him. Grace and the other guards also stopped for a moment, knowing that William had slowed down his movement. "Alpha 1, why are you stopping?" shouted Grace while looking back at William. He looked at two of the zombies that were present in the hallway, seemingly familiar with the looks of it. It was D1020 and D1140. Creators' thoughts? Inakia. Don't forget to vote it with Power Stones and leave a comment if